IMHO Talk Show.
But what's on tap for the good people today, Max? Like out of all the questions and comments and discussion.
Well, I actually gave the question at the start of the show. In keeping with our conversation on men's mental health, and given our last guest, Ms. Coleman, joining us and talking about her books and what she's doing to help address mental health issues that men are dealing with. It's great work and a wonderful resource. If you can't talk to someone, you can't talk to somebody, like find somebody who's willing to listen. Because even you feel lighter, even just getting those things that are weighing down on you out by speaking them. But if you remember at the start of the show, I said that I was interested in hearing the top 3 to 5 things, I'll say, that are fears or stresses or worries that men deal with. Because I feel like we can speak generally here for the most part. There are just certain things that men worry about. And I asked this question really just honestly seeking to understand, not just for myself, but for those listening. But this is also how we as partners to those men, friends of those men, know how to help and assist them through certain things. I heard someone say before that in order to be healthy, you must have mental health. It's not your body is healthy and your mind isn't. It's all one thing. And so, wanting to hear what you have to say from your own Black male perspective.
This feels like a setup, Miss Max.
Well, because I said, I don't want you to break any bro codes or anything like that. But you men are relying on the people in your life, and if nothing else, the people in your life are impacted by whatever it is that you may be going through or dealing with internally, and because of that, it's a good reason that we know and understand each other, so that we can help support each other.
Yeah. That's deep. And so, of course, without incriminating myself or the brothers, I'm still gonna keep it real with you. But I feel like, I have been privileged enough to be in rooms and spaces, conversations with some, with a lot of trusted brothers, just as our last guest, Pamela Coleman, has, right? And there is somewhat of a bro code to it, Max, but at the same time, I don't mean that in any kind of negative or off-putting way. And I say that because the bro code, if you will, would be the fact that there is a safe space to where somebody's personal business won't be divulged. But also the desire for things to be known so that the help can be administered is also there. You see what I'm saying? So, so it's a fine line, right? How it is. We all had the friends where they tell us a secret.
Right. And we ain't gonna tell nobody.
and sometimes you may say something, but you don't say who said it. You ain't heard that from me. But no, so you said maybe 3 or so tops. Kind of feel like there's even sort of a order to it too. Really, that hits me. And funny enough, being that it's also Black Music Month that we're celebrating, a big part of it is having a positive outlet.
Okay.
Right. But I actually save that for last because I feel like that, the order of it. First thing is the safe space.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of men, particularly Black men, speaking from that perspective of, like you grow up with certain gender norms and standards off the bat if you identify as a male, but even deeper than that, you being a Black male, right? Because then you deal with the conversations that some other folks don't have to have with their sons.
Okay.
Like, what do you do if you get put over by the police? You know what I mean? So just think about that layer of stress within itself. It's like, I can't even be a 16-year-old and just do 16-year-old stuff because somebody may see me as a threat, or even being in school at a very young age. and you dealing with, I can't speak out, I can't be boisterous, I can't speak my mind because this fragile white teacher normally is intimidated by my blackness, by my strength. You know what I mean? Like so then I'm taught at an early age to squelch myself and to like compress my feelings and who I am, because I gotta be acceptable, I gotta fit into a box. Even take that back, even with the parents. Razor said this not too long ago too. We almost teach our kids to be scared. And I remember what he compared it to was like in a general sense, you could be at like a playground, right, or something like that. In general, the white kids are like on the monkey bars doing all kinds of stuff. Parents ain't saying nothing in general. Black kid, get yourself down. You're gonna hurt yourself, boy. If you don't, you follow what I'm saying?
I do.
So it's like just the difference in the way that we even rear our kids teaches that you teach almost like a fear, and that you should be afraid instead of the freedom of spreading your wings.
Something that I have to prevent myself from doing is in some conversations with my youngest kids, their ages 9 and 11. Let's say we can be having a conversation about them having to read for 30 minutes in the evening time. And of course, it's summer, so they not really trying to do that, or much rather be watching YouTube or something. And before I know it, what's coming out, what I'm saying is that, you have to do X, Y, Z because, and then here comes, all of the judgments that society places on them, and that I'm saying to justify why they must be smarter, better, good at certain things. And I have to stop myself from doing that sometimes, because I realize I'm projecting that onto them. And I don't want them to grow up thinking that, this teacher standing in the classroom or whoever is, for them not to have that default thought that they think I am this and therefore I have to act this way or conduct myself that way. So
that's deep.
Okay, so a safe place.
Safe space, emotional freedom. I think those kind of go together. You know what I mean? Like, to provide safe space, emotional freedom from the time that our Black boys are born, until they're on their own, making their own choices. Right?
What's that look like? Raw and unedited. What does that look like?
Like even like even alluding to the examples that I just gave, it is the right to be authentic. The right to be authentic, right? And that's easier said than done, because we're in a society where to be successful, you're told so many times that you got to check certain boxes, even if those boxes feel foreign to you, right? Like that's number one thing. Is like I feel like so many of our people of the African diaspora or people of color, like however you want to group them or group us, is a lot of times there's so much that's just foreign to us. Like innately, there's things that don't sit right with our spirit that this world tries to make us do.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so so to me, what that looks like is the right to be authentic. I mean, like even think about the fact of just code switching, and the fact that a lot of us, to be successful, like we found ourselves in spaces to where it's like we can't appropriately dress the way we want to dress. We can't wear our hair the way we want to wear our hair. We can't use vernacular that we want to use. And I'm saying, all can still be professional and be done, cleanly, right? But you always have that pressure of like, they ain't hear me. Like one thing brothers talk about is like how we have to tone ourselves down. And I know Black women have said this as well, but in particular, for men's mental health, it's like we can say something, but if it's too loud, if it's too forthright, then you can see people in the room tighten up. It's almost like they're getting scared. It's like, why are you? Why are you? Right. But then we see white counterparts can say the same thing, but because their delivery, because of their appearance, like, it's not off-putting, it's not intimidating, right? So
it might be off-putting, it's not intimidating. Yeah.
So then, or even when it is, it's still accepted because they may be a white man instead of a Black man.
That's true.
You know what I mean? And that even falls fault on us sometimes too. Like even we drink that Kool-Aid. Even we think the grass is green and the water's cold. Of like, ooh, well, if like that white man looks like the bill of success, so he looks like he knows what he's talking about. Just like this black dude could have more experience, could have more education, but the prejudices that a lot of people will just innately have, right?
Right.
But yeah, but to me, that's what that looks like. And I think we have to be real within our own spaces, even if there's still public spaces to where like we can't give each other those freedoms and that grace at home.
Yeah.
In our communities, we gotta stop judging each other, coming down on each other. Like, so that leads me to the next one, which is the fear, because you asked me about the top ones, like fears when it comes to mental health, right? So fear of not, feeling safe and free to be emotional. Second is the fear of not succeeding or living up to expectations as a man.
Okay.
Right. And when I say that is the fear of not living up to the standards of being able to provide.
Okay.
Then you see some of us resort to illegal activity because it's like, in some instances, it's like, she ain't gonna work. She don't want to work. I'm the man. I got to provide by any means necessary. Right. Okay. So the fear of not being able to provide, and sometimes not even feeling like that you can tell your family, hey, look, I got laid off, or I didn't get the job, or they ain't paying me as much as I asked for. You follow what I'm saying? Like the fear of those kind of things. Okay. And then the fear of failing like as a man as well, not only the monetary things, but from the respect factor. There's one thing that I say is I feel like all parents, especially men, I feel like fathers are their child's first superhero until they see the kinks in the armor, until they see that he's just human. Right. And we all get to that point at some point to where like your children like, Dad didn't know what he was talking about. Or whatever the case is, or like you may have hurt their mom, you may have hurt the child in some way emotionally, and then they lose that respect for you because they see your fallacies. Like just being a man, right? Being carnal, you're no longer their superhero.
Right.
So yeah, so I think just living up to the standards that we've set of being a respected man in our homes and in society.
And when I hear that, I wonder about when we talk about rearing our children and the lessons we need to teach them so that they can grow up with not as many, apprehensions about how to live, how to structure their lives, and allowing other people's standards or judgments to dictate, how they live. I wonder if it would help if we had more conversations with our kids as they grow about not being perfect and about not always getting it right. But what failure looks like and what it looks like to kind of recover from those things and continue, to live your life and make the best decisions as possible. And I don't think I've ever really had that conversation with any of my kids.
I mean, and a lot of us haven't, but we definitely should. And this ain't even scripted, y'all, but that leads perfectly into my third one.
Okay.
Which is the support system around, particularly our women.
Okay.
The Black women reinforcing that this is my man, this is, your father, this is our leader. With all his issues and all his fallacies, he will still be respected end of the day.
Right.
Like that's the other big thing. Because like I said before, the worst thing you could do is bruise a man's ego. Right. And I ain't talking about like some super inflated ego that don't need to be there. I'm talking about the raw bare minimum of I'm a man. Like you agreed for me to like you agreed to bond with me and form this union, start this family, start this house, whatever the case is. So when I'm weak, like don't kick me while I'm down.
But you know what?
You know what I mean?
I don't know if we always know when we may be doing something to bruise our significant other's ego. I don't know. Like sometimes I found myself as I continue to the more years I have here on this earth and longer I'm in a marriage and things like that. Sometimes it's just easier to just say it. So it's like I'm not beating around the bush and we done been through too much. So blah, 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 blah. Okay. And all I'm trying to do is like be direct and save time. And let's just get to the core of whatever this thing is so that we can move on to whatever the next steps are.
Yeah. So I think that depends on who we're dealing with too.
Okay.
Right. Because of course, like there's no one size fits all. Everybody knows that. Whether you're talking about raising kids or you're talking about a marriage or whatever kind of relationship, There's no manual, right?
Sure.
So to that point, I believe that we all know who we're working with. Like, especially if you've been together long enough, and if
you know the buttons,
right? Exactly. And so that's that grace and that compassion to where we got to be more, appreciative of each other, and that where we recognize, like what works and what doesn't. Because I feel like that if you don't know that about your partner yet, then you haven't been together long enough to say that this is my life partner, because you got to learn each other a little more, Right. But to that point, I feel like we just need that level of compassion to be like, all right, you moving different. I know something ain't right. So then how do I normally, get him to talk? Right. Because the thing is that you got to think, if that man already like has a persona and a mindset and, and maybe like a hardness that is not going to share, right? Then we got to start right there first. Maybe we need to start thinking in the beginning of our relationships and realizing, okay, I got to know we can communicate for this relationship to even work.
For sure. Gosh.
And do we need counseling? Do we need therapy?
Yeah.
But this relationship ain't going to work if we don't know how to communicate with each other.
And heaven forbid, like one of you comes from a family of communicators and one of you comes from a family where there's silence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or where toxicity like rules. Like maybe y'all talking, but y'all just yelling. And demeaning.
Yeah. So, I'm listening to what your answers here. And another thing is that those of us in a relationship with someone have to be humble enough to get past our egos and pride and all these things that might hinder us from being attentive to our significant others, feelings and thoughts, and picking up on those little subtle clues that something's not quite right and I should probably check in. Because it's very easy to say, that seemed a little funny. Maybe something's not quite right, but I got something else to do. So, and at this moment, that's more important to me. And they'll deal with it. Whatever it is, they'll deal with it. Same way I'm dealing with stuff, they'll deal with it. Right. So yeah, it's very easy for us to brush those things off, and then you get down the road a bit, and small issues have become much bigger ones because you never really learned how to handle those things. Properly handle those things.
Exactly. And it may be last thing that I'll mention for now is the need for a positive outlet. And I know you asked like what is the fear, but but it still wraps in because it kind of goes back to the first one. Is that fear of that, like, I don't know what's next. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix like what I'm feeling. And so sometimes that becomes like negative outlets, right? Because I'm bottling it up. Maybe because nobody told me how to deal with my emotions, or maybe because my circle, who's supposed to be my support circle, takes shots at me like whenever I show a weakness, So, but whatever the case is, I need an outlet, and I need to make sure that I know how to get these feelings out in a positive manner, in a beneficial manner, or something that's not going to be the opposite to impede my progress. So, and that's why I mentioned earlier too, how like even with this being Black Music Month as well, like you see so many of us that do resort to things like the arts, like like to entertainment. And that's why they say sometimes rappers are the best poets. You know what I mean? Because like just think about like how much knowledge sometimes fits into these lyrics, or like how many of our brothers are using rap music as therapy. Really, they're using it as a sound. Like think people held DMX. That's one of the things people love about just the rawness, right? The gritty,
I like DMX.
Of just like bearing his soul through his music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But entertainment wise, we look at sports, of course, too, and think about like how critical and pivotal sports has been, to our community. Like whether it's just ways to keep us off the street, whether it's ways into college, you know what I mean? Like just those kind of positive outlets, are definitely needed and should stay there. But we need more than that. Like
definitely need
like we're more than entertainers.
Because you will taking it to like sports and different things like that, and thinking about a young boy who will eventually become a grown man and still will deal with all the same things. But outlets will change. You're not going to be on the high school football team forever. You're not going to have your coaches as mentors forever. And so, you need to learn and find some solid things that you can carry with you, even if that looks like a therapist for real, but that you can carry with you to help you through stuff. Something that I was thinking about in the earlier interview I'll bring up now is that we really do have to change the way that we view or label what is considered a weakness, because it's a weakness because why? So whether we're talking about, being vulnerable and open it up to certain people and about, what you may be dealing with and things like that is considered a weakness. But why is it considered that? And just removing that stigma or label from that so that we can then get down to some real healing and address and realize we all human. There's no superhumans here. We all deal with the same emotions and the same issues at some point or another throughout life. And so being able to address those things that we're dealing with internally, talk about them in an effort to fix them and be healed from them, rather than, carrying them, unfortunately, for some folks, with them their entire lives. So.
Yeah. And just like we got to know what makes ourselves happy, instead of worrying about how somebody else can make us happy.
Right. Sure.
It's the same thing of being honest with ourselves and being honest with others.
For sure.
Same thing. And part of that, honestly, Max, really the deep root, if we talk about Black American men in particular too, I don't want to sound like Gene Cash, but a lot of this is white supremacy. You know what I mean? It could tie back.
It has its place.
From the simple fact of, like, when you look at just the societal structure and we think about when we had strong communities and families and how they say, like, that a lot of those numbers dwindle, as far as when, like, for, like all of the stats and different reasons. But you got to remember that it is a structural tool. It's a strategic tool to break the Black family. And that's been that way since the beginning of our people being here, right? Is that things in society are designed because they realize that if you break that structure, if that woman doesn't respect that man, and there's things that are intentionally done, right, to show that woman that man is not worthy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so once you have that mental stigma, then I feel like everything else snowballs.
And there are some folks that fall victim to that more than others, but you control what you can control, right? And don't throw everything to the wind because you feel like, well, the system is built against me, so I guess this is just what it is, and it will forever be that, So we have to, have some backbone, be able to know. I would say this, men and women, know who you are, learn who you are, the same way you might learn a partner, but to grow up to be a decent person who is in touch with who they are and knows, like you mentioned, what makes you happy, what your needs are, what things you need in your life, what keeps you motivated, being solid on that front of understanding yourself first and foremost will help you to then be able to make the right decisions to surround yourself by the things that will help your mental health, and any other thing, that might affect you throughout your life. You must know who you are first. And that's not like, I know who I am. I ain't taking no bull. I know who I am, not on a confrontational front. But the same way that you may get into a relationship and know your significant other, same way you may raise kids and your kid, you got to know yourself first and foremost.
Facts. Perfect. Yep. That's the way to end it. This Ask Max, Miss Max.
All right.